our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1940.
For the 74th Annual Coaches Clinic, hosted by the New Mexico High School Coaches Association. Big round of applause for Buster Mayberry, the Executive Director, ladies and gentlemen, and the Board of Directors who are here. What a week it's going to be. Another week of learning, getting to take something away, and understanding about a championship culture, which we're going to kick off today. And what a week it's going to be on Wednesday for the 3 new inductees into the Hall of Honor. How about a big round of applause for Richard Luscombe, Matt Martinez, and Roy Sanchez, ladies and gentlemen. So Buster said, Mike, I want to start off with some creative, and I got a panel of all panels. Let me introduce them. First, I want to introduce Dr. Coyote Cooper. Make Your Mark Enterprise. Assistant Professor, former of Sports Administration at the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Let me repeat that, North Carolina. Marketing business side of sport is what he's going to talk about. He's an author, a coach, a speaker, and he empowers people to their potential. He's the former NCAA All-American from Indiana. Big round of applause for Dr. Coyote Cooper, ladies and gentlemen. Our next esteemed panelist is the CEO of Focus 3. Is there any math teachers in here? Right here, listen. Listen to this math. E plus R equals O. Yeah, you're going to teach that after this. Leadership, culture. Those are the skills he provides. He went to the College of Worcester in Ohio. And here's an interesting thing. Urban Meyer, the Urban Meyer, won 2 national championships at the University of Florida. He goes to Ohio State, the Ohio State University, and he brings on Mr. Brian Kight, who's the Buckeyes leadership coach when they won the national championship. Big round of applause for Brian Kight, ladies and gentlemen. Our next panelist was a graduate from Manzano, the former Monarch. Then she went to the University of New Mexico to get her BA. She went and got her master's at Virginia Tech. In 2003, inducted into the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame. She is one of only 3 females to hold this title, the first Hispanic woman. Let me repeat that, the first Hispanic woman to be an executive director of the New Mexico Activities Association. Big round of applause for Sally Marquez. What an esteemed panel. Coyote, start us off.
Man, he's got me fired up here. I didn't expect that. And it leads into the first point. I think when you're trying to build a championship culture, the very first thing is the leader sets the tone. It's always the case. When you study this and you watch the best programs, the best businesses, there's always somebody who steps up and casts vision. And they have this energy, right, where they're willing to step up and say, this is the vision, this is where we're going. And then they're really, really extraordinary about going out and every single day casting vision. And I've watched coaches do this, and when they do this, the results are really, really amazing. But you have to have the ability to first sit down and say, what do you want to be able to accomplish as a coach for your program? And then you can't be lazy with that and expect it's going to show up. You got to get up every single morning, and you got to see your vision over and over. And it can't be, oh, yeah, I want to do this. It's got to be, this is what I want to do. I'm excited to do this. Because it's going to get hard. It's going to get hard. And when it does, you have to keep showing up with that energy, because ultimately building a program is about pulling people on board for your vision and building it into something great. So I think that's the starting point that I would say.
Excellent. For those of you who don't know, they have 1 minute to give you this concept. BK.
We got that buzzer sounding right at the end. So for the rest of the day, please assume that I always start this with what he said and what she said. Okay, so we're just going to add on to everything. I'm going to start with 2 simple statements. The first one is, the purpose of a belief is to produce a behavior. And the second is that the purpose of culture is to drive execution that wins. The purpose of a belief is to produce a behavior. What's that mean? What that means is this: there's no free option to believe something without actually doing it. If you say you believe it, there's one reference point, and that is, do you do it? And look at the words we talk about: truth, accountability, honesty, teamwork, collaboration, empathy. We claim certain beliefs. What we need to align is the belief with the actual behavior. And if we're not willing to behave in alignment with what we say we believe, then we need to scale down what we say to align with what we're actually willing to follow through on. The second is this whole thing we're talking about here: culture. Execution.
Now, piggybacking on what they say, they talk about a belief. One thing, coaches, I say to you is, don't be obsessed with winning. What is your belief? Look at the process. And if you motivate them and you teach them basic skills and you go through the process for the end result, that's when winning will come. But if you keep focusing on, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win, that's not going to do it. It's the process. The results of the process will ultimately give you the wins. And what is winning? I think more is winning in life versus winning in a game.
Yeah, I love that, and it would lead into, I think we're going to be all on the same page here, which I think is really cool. But the second piece that I want to talk about is just a high energy culture, right? The ability to sit down, and we talked about vision, but sitting down, and we've had 2 people here mention, aspects of values. If you have a program, you should have values that you live by. And things that you go back to every single day. And a lot of corporations and coaching staffs and athletic departments have values, but it's what you do with them that really matters. And you don't need to go on the internet and search for the words like integrity. If you like that, by all means do that, but make it your own. Some of the best programs in the country right now in wrestling, the sport I come from, they talk about having fun. A lot of coaches say, oh, we can't do that. Of course you can. Cale Sanderson at Penn State has won 6 of 7 national championships, and 2 of their top values are just fun and gratitude, right? And they live those things like crazy every single day. but you got to have a value system that everybody knows you're working from.
Yeah, let's keep going right into that. I'll just sort of double down on both of those, on that execution piece. The big mistake people make in culture is assuming that culture's job is to make people feel good, which it isn't. It's just not culture's job to make people feel good, whether it's wrestling or tennis or football or business. How many of you are teachers also, or administrators? Yeah. There's parts of the job that are fun. Can we also agree that not every part of your job is a blast every day? Right? But we still has to get done, right? Because people are counting on you. And so here's the point. If your culture requires you to feel good all the time, there are significant parts of your job you're just not going to do. If culture requires us to feel good all the time, we can't tell each other the truth, because the truth is painful sometimes. That's why culture has to be execution. If you need to feel good, do something after. Or you want to feel good, make parts of it fun. But if culture doesn't execute, then you have something that is working against your program, not something that's working for your program.
That buzzer. So, we talk about culture, and one thing as coaches, coach for the love of the game. You love the game. And that's the reason to be coaching instead of for publicity. And I think there's two things that you can look at that. Is we want to give back to the game because the game was so good to us. And we want to coach because we love that game. And that's why officials do officiate too, is because they want to give back in that way. But it's not about the publicity that you get. Your pat on the back, and believe me, I've coached, we've all coached, your pat on the back is when that kid comes years later and says, thank you, coach. That's that pat on the back. Or somebody look in your eye and say, you changed my life. And sometimes you don't get that all the time, but it's that one person that says it that keeps you going. So remember, you love the game, coach for the love of the game, not for the pat on the back. But when you see your kids and your athletes be successful in life, that's when you put a smile on your face.
Yeah, and that makes me think of, I have a guy named Jim Miller who's a friend of mine, and he was a 10-time national championship coach, and the guy is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And I've ran into his athletes as I'm moving around the country, and I'll say, what was Jim like? Every single one of them say, he's one of the most motivating human beings I've ever met. That he's extraordinary. He's changed my life. And I've had a chance to ask Jim about this. And Jim says he didn't always feel like it, but one of his values was, you guessed it, be motivating. Be motivating. And he said there'd be days where his athletes would be doing the wrong things, his kids wouldn't sleep, and he wouldn't want to, but he'd have this alleyway to his mat room. And every day there'd be this red piece of tape. And when he would step over it, he would say, be motivating. Be that every single day. And he would model that at a crazy high level. And I think that's when you really get somewhere. I think we think that values and winning are separate. They're not. And he modeled it so well. His athletes love him and remember him, and they just operate at a high level. And I just think when you get that right, it's so cool.
I'd give another statement that a lot of coaches have been grabbing a hold of, a lot of businesses as well. And the statement is, be you, align with us. One of the mistakes we can make in culture is trying to be monolithic. I look around this room right now, men, women, different ages, different sports, different backgrounds, different histories, different races, different religions. What we need, not just in our sports and in our schools, what we need to return to in our country, in just my perspective and opinion, is the freedom to be yourself while aligning with us. And inside of our programs, the standard for culture is this. I'm never going to ask you to be somebody you're not. I just want you to be the best version of you. It has to align with where we're going, though. Because who you are cannot supersede our culture, and our culture is never going to ask you to be who you're not. So feel the freedom to be you, get going in the same direction that we're going. And when you can get that happening, not just young people can buy into that, but adults as well.
He's talking about being you, and when we asked who were teachers, I would tell you the majority of you raised your hand. And whether you're a teacher or you're a contract coach, you are an educator. Remember that athletics is an extension of the classroom. And in that classroom, what are you teaching? And so there was a good example of if we're teaching math and somebody made a wrong mistake, and I taught math, and if somebody made a mistake in a math calculation, You didn't scream and holler and throw anything at them. Okay? You encouraged them. You talked to them. You showed them a skill. You taught them how to be better in the classroom. Athletics is an extension of the classroom. So be you. Be that educator. Be that teacher. And don't forget, always remember that when the going gets tough there, I know it's hard, and it's a little bit different in athletics, but always remember that you're a teacher and an educator first.
I think you and I had different math teachers.
Yeah, and when I think about some of the best coaches that I ever had, I think about authenticity, right? People who knew the values of what was going to be in their room or in their program, and then they didn't have a different set of rules for themselves. They would step up and they would model those things at an extremely high level. And as a result, when I had a coach like that in high school. His name was Ron, and he wanted us to work hard, but gosh, he worked hard. And in wrestling, it's not so fun to mop the mats, but every day, most coaches would be like, I'm not doing that, somebody else does that. Every day we'd go in there and he'd be mopping it. And we'd eventually go over and ask him, can we do that for you? But when I think about him, I just think about an incredible ability to model. I have a lot of coaches who will invite me, say, I want you to come in and teach my team about goal setting and about visualization. And the first thing I say, do you do it? And they're like, no, why would I do that? I'm like, because you're the leader. And you think it's weird as a coach to visualize. Of course it's not. You should visualize. You should write your goals down so you know what you're teaching your athletes and you model that at a high level. So I think your values, you have to do all those things. It didn't beep at me. I can keep going. Oh, okay, there it is.
As we get more beeps, the pressure is just mounting here. As we layer through this, and this is coming at you rapid fire, I have a lot of respect for the fact that we're sitting in this room right now. In this hotel, with this weird carpet and, like all hotels. Sorry to the hotel people. But this is dress rehearsal, you guys. The culture is happening out there. And if we leave culture as a discussion in a ballroom, and then we go back to our respective sport and we jump right back into the strategies and the tactics and the techniques, and we leave culture to an off-season discussion or a whiteboard somewhere, your culture and your strategy are fundamentally tied together. There is no difference between the two. How you live your culture is how you execute your strategy is how you live your culture. The biggest mistake we could make is making culture a sidebar so that we can go back and coach our sport. Make them the same at the exact same time.
I'm sitting in this chair a little bit different than their perspective because I live it on a day-to-day basis when it comes to phone calls in my office. And he talked about different set of rules. He talked about the different set of rules of doing the mats, just as you would ask your kids to do. I come here and ask you, is there should not be different set of rules based on an athlete's ability. And I get that in my office quite a bit, that you treat some of the ones that are not as athletic as the others a little bit different. Treat everybody the same. You will gain so much respect if everybody has the same set of rules. Don't turn a blind eye to one of your star athletes doing something wrong, because there's been many stories where that star athlete was not, I'm running out of time, and I hear, the star athlete was not disciplined in high school, and they went on to college, and they're not where they should be. So it's on you. Discipline the star athlete just like you would any other athlete.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with that more. And I think when you get to a championship program, a lot of it is process-driven, right? There's certain ways that you do things every single day. It doesn't matter if it's your best athlete or your worst athlete. You come in and you approach things from a certain standpoint. And one of the things that I see some of the top athletes and coaches in the world constantly talking about is growth. Growth is how they do things, right? You have certain goals of what you want to achieve, but every day when you come in, it's everybody's job to maximize growth, to want to get better. You can have an athlete who's not winning any matches. If they're getting better, they deserve to be praised for that. They may be improving more than other people, and when you embrace the heck out of that, everybody ends up getting better. And here's the cool thing. When you value growth above everything else, you can get rid of fear, right? Fear is that thing where we worry about these outcomes that we sometimes can't control, but when every day we come in and we're valuing growth, getting better every single day, A lot of times, the best environment I was ever in, it was the best club I was ever in, we just valued growth. And so I think treat everybody the same, but do that based on process.
Curiosity, how many of you are millennials in the room? How many millennials? Let me put it this way, 32 or younger. It's all good. Okay? How about who's over 32? Okay, there we go. By the way, don't tell HR that I asked such a specific question, okay? I want to talk about entitlement, okay? I want to talk about entitlement because here's the thing, you know, with 30 seconds, and so you're going to get the straight truth with a lot of love on this one. I don't care whether you're 18 or 50, you don't have an excuse for entitlement. My observation of the business world, education world, and athletic world, I am far more concerned about the entitlement of adult professionals than I am about youth. Because youth has built-in reasons they don't get it yet. They haven't been where we've been yet. I want to know why the 50-year-old is entitled. That what you've done for the last 20 or 30 years means you don't have to get better at your job or be good in 2020. Nobody cares how you did it in 2002. We're in this world now. So be a great coach for the world you live in, not resenting the environment you actually have to coach and live in today.
That was good. Keep going. I was going to have him take my minute because he was on a roll there. But as we piggyback on that, remember those life lessons. You know, he said, we talked about integrity, respect, but there's so many more life lessons. Teach them how to fail. What do you do when you fail? How do you pick yourself back up? Adversity. You know, right now we talked about millenniums, teamwork. You know, we have in those 32 and youngers, we got to start teaching a little bit about more teamwork, and we can do that through athletics. And we can change the culture through athletics. You know, we have the club world, and then we have our world, education-based athletics. It's about lifelong lessons. And continue to remember that as you are teaching in that classroom, whether it's a court, on the field, on a tennis court, wherever it may be. Remember those lifelong lessons that you're doing every single day, and that will change our world.
And I think going on a similar theme, you know, the one thing you do see younger generations is just really a gravitation towards instant, right? Getting things really, really quickly. And it becomes easy as leaders and coaches to look and blame and say, oh, man, this generation has gotten so lazy. But I always look at it and go, well, something's allowed that. And I think I've allowed that sometimes with my kids, with their iPads and allowing them to use it all the time. But I also think that kids also have within them, they have drive. But what they need is they need leaders to teach them more about setting goals. It's crazy. Kids are like adverse to setting goals now, from the kids I've worked with. But if you can sit down and find out what they really love and then go back to some of their habits and say, hey, with technology, this is what it's doing to your brain. It's getting to the point where you expect instant, where you're giving up really, really quickly. Let's change that, because that's a pattern, right? But if you can create a culture where you teach them about that and give them a better option, where you're setting goals, you're working hard, you're putting the phone away, I mean, I think you're a leader, we have to accomplish that. If not, I think next generations we're in a little bit of trouble. So I think making that a part of your program.
I don't know what number we're on or how many we have left. I'll continue right over that. I mean, you think about this. With young people at any age, doesn't matter, they didn't give themselves participation trophies, guys. Okay, if young people are entitled, understand cause and effect. They didn't entitle themselves. So anytime there's an amount of blame going at youth, I just have no patience for it or empathy for it. Because here's why. You'll notice this pattern. There's this pattern where we're so quick to criticize. The only thing we do quicker than criticize is avoid criticism. And that's just a bad combo. So if we want to have a view on entitlement, let's have a view on entitlement. Let's take a look at it, but let's make sure that we recognize if there is an entitlement that does exist, let's make sure we understand where it came from, or we recognize that the traits of youth are the traits of youth. And they've been that way for a really long time. We're not that different.
And I'm going off on a different angle. Keep it in perspective. After all, it's just a game. And if for those guys that last year, if you saw the preseason DVD, we had one female athlete from Albuquerque High step up and criticize her father on that DVD. And at the end of the DVD, she says, you know, she talked about her dad and sportsmanship, but at the end, it's just a game. We have so many things going on in this world. You know somebody with cancer. You know somebody with multiple sclerosis. You know somebody who just passed away, who had an accident. You know, I sit in my chair and I go home, and if my family is healthy and happy, then I'm okay. And you need to keep it in perspective. Keep it in perspective that your family, your friends, it's just a game. As long as everybody's healthy and happy, that you'll be okay.
Yeah, and I think building on that, sometimes when we don't keep things in perspective as leaders and especially as coaches, that's causing some of the biggest fears I think athletes have. When we build things up too much, you know, kids are really developed like fears towards it. And I was working with a few kids recently, really good athletes in a kind of a coaching standpoint, and I sat down and I wanted to set some goals, right? And I wanted them to write down some of these outcome-based goals, because that's what I did when I was younger. I wanted to be a state champ. I wanted to be a regional champ, a national champ. And they, like, avoided it like crazy. And it took me a while to figure it out. And it wasn't until I figured this out that we finally started to get more performance. And what I had to do is shift with them, is go away from that outcome base. At some point, we'll revisit that. But and we might have known, okay, this is where they want to be, but writing that down every single day was giving them more anxiety. We had to move to process-based goals. Process-based goals, right? What is it they can do every single day in terms of maybe reading or watching film or getting certain repetitions in every single day? And when they started to write that down and they emphasized growth, performance exploded for them. But I think that's one of those things, just looking at it from a different perspective too.
BK, before you start, we got 3 more minutes on the panel, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. We have 3 more minutes up top.
I think this one might actually get asked, so I'll answer this one, and then we'll get a fresh question. The timeline it takes to actually build culture. Culture is measured in production, and that production is either on field or it is measured in the quality of the experience. And in fact, it's both. Because a lot of your early culture work is not going to show up in wins, it's not going to show up in points, it's not going to show up in the real production. It's going to show up, you're going to start to see and feel and hear the experience change. But the measurement for culture is actual production, which goes back to why we would do culture. We do it so that we can actually execute and produce something. The timeline for culture is measured in years, not in months. If we're checking in on our culture to see whether we make progress in 3 months, we're going to get disheartened. So take an 18 to 24-month lens for culture change, because we need to change beliefs, we need to change behavior, and we need to change experience. That doesn't happen in less than 18 to 24 months. You're going to be somewhere 2 years from now. Don't be short-sighted. Always play the long game when it comes to building your culture, because that's what's going to secure.
Okay, for those of you who know me, this is a little bit different than what I'm used to. They just talked about process-based goals and production. And I was reading the other day, and it was from a kid. It was a quote from a 14-year-old girl. And I'm just going to read the quote because, like I said, if you guys know me here, it says, "Hearing that you suck never inspires anybody." So put that in perspective from a 14-year-old, and I'm sorry I use those language, but that is what a lot of coaches do. We downgrade, we tell them how terrible they are, we tell them that they made a mistake, they're not going to be any good. How is that going to get them to produce? And how are they going to meet their goals and your goals as a team if that is the continued environment that you have?
Yeah, and the last thing, I'll just build on that, and I think this is maybe the most important thing that you can do as a coach, and that's to believe in your athletes. And I think about the best coaches and teachers I ever had that I remember and I absolutely love, and they believed in us. And I had one coach in high school, and I remember I was at the Cadet World Team Trials when I was 14 years old. It was the best 15 and 16-year-olds. I walk up to the bracket, I'm going to make this quick, and I see I've got the #1 kid in the country, Stephen Bradley, and he's bald, and he's jacked, and he looked like he could eat me. He was just, I mean, and I'm walking away, and I'm like, I can't beat this. I got Stephen Bradley. And my coach, Ron, at the time, who I love, he always walk up and he comes up and goes, "What's going on, Coyote?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." He's like, "Well, what's up?" And I said, "I have Stephen Bradley. the #1 kid in the country. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, no, Stephen Bradley has you. The first thing I thought, is he insane? Has he seen Stephen Bradley? But I walked away and I started to go because he believed in me. I love this guy. I started to go, Stephen Bradley has me. And I walk out and I beat Stephen Bradley and I win the tournament. And I don't tell you that to impress you. I tell you that because I don't even place in the tournament if not for a coach that believed in me. Changed my entire life and my belief system.
Big round of applause for this esteemed panel. And now we wanted to have time to open up the floor. Just raise your hand, I'll come to you. What question do you have to start this process off? And I'm going to stay with that word process as I'm seeing some of you think. I want to go back to process for each of you. Process was a big word for all three of you. So I'm going to go right here, BK. How do you process that you got a national championship coach in Urban Meyer? He brings you in at The Ohio State. What was the process for that?
For getting there or for doing it?
For doing it and then winning another national championship.
Yeah, it was, I have the good fortune of working with my dad, and so my dad and I got to do a lot of work there. But the process is really straightforward, and I believe in simplicity above everything else. Our entire business is built on doing simple things with elite discipline. And so the process is this: build a leadership system, have a culture system, and have a behavior system. That's what execution comes down to. You can reverse engineer it. The results you produce are going to come from the quality of your behavior. If as a coach you teach more about the technique of the game than you can teach about mental toughness or accountability or attitude, we're going to be out of balance on that. Because a moment's going to come where you need a certain level of mental toughness, but we're going to know how to teach, an overhand or how to bump set spike better than we can teach mindset. If we spend more time teaching game plan than we teach culture, kids are going to lean more towards game plan and they're going to lean away from culture. And if we constantly ask for leadership and tell kids to be leaders, but we don't put simple tools for elite leadership execution into their hands, well, then we're going to be asking for something that's not likely to be produced. So my big belief, our big belief is the same way you view sports and how you try to do as much systematically as you can in your sport, treat leadership, culture, and behavior with the exact same view systematically, and you'll love the payoff you see.
Let me ask Coyote. Coyote, you're in the Big Ten. You're an All-American. For anybody who knows wrestling in here, the Big Ten, you have to process that. You're at Indiana University. What was the process for the Hoosiers when you had to go up against Iowa and Penn State and The Ohio State?
Well, I mean, we could have actually had a better process, I would say. But in terms of our process, I mean, when you would go into it at a high level, one of the things, if you're doing it right, and even when you're preparing, let's say the Big Tens, that might be a better example. When you're preparing for the Big Tens, I mean, there's so many different pieces. You have to be very clear with what you want to accomplish when you walk in there and not have doubt with that. But in terms of preparation, the best coaches I ever had were really good at getting you through and shortening up your workouts when you're getting towards the Big Tens, keeping things crisp. But I think the process when I was at my best wrestling was when I was focused on just going out and cutting loose, having fun, not thinking. And so whatever that process is, I think what we could have done better is we could have done things like meditation. We could have done things to relax and release. But when you get out there and you can get to the point where you get rid of all the chatter in your brain and you just go out and cut loose, that's when the process is right. And I think those are things like revisiting your goals. I think it's visualization. I love what you said. Simple, but just being extraordinary at those things. Just doing those little things like the goal setting, like the growth emphasis every single day. So that's when the process is right. And so I had to answer it a different way because I didn't get it right as much as I could in college.
Let me go to Sally. Sally, I think back, you've taught, you've coached, you played at a high level. Now you have to process all this. And when I say all this, it's the entire state of New Mexico that you oversee. How does that process work for you on a day-to-day basis?
I think first and foremost, communication is the key. In my situation here, we have coaches, athletic directors, superintendents, athletes. We have it all. But, I don't know if it's the word process as I'm answering your question correctly, but what I hold dear is this: if I communicate, if I'm fair, then things will take care of itself if I explain why. And if it's not, and I have to look at everybody here, and I sit in my position and I think I work for all of you. That's how I view my job. I work for the superintendents, I work for the athletic directors. This is your membership. This is not mine. I'm blessed that you've hired me to do this, but you have to remember the NMAA is you. It's not just me up here at the top. The NMAA is all of us together, and if we continue to work together, whether that's sportsmanship, bylaws, rules, and everything else, then we're all going to be better people for it. So that's how I view sitting in my chair.
Who has the next question for this esteemed staff, ladies and gentlemen? Just raise your hand. You don't get this quality and this quantity of information all at once. Sir, go ahead and stand up. Tell us what school you're from and direct your question to who you'd like to.
Magdalena High School, coach volleyball. And you're talking about culture and changing culture, but how do we deal things out of our control? Parents usually is my biggest issue of like teaching kid values and core values and stuff like this, but they get home and it's really not the same. It's not the same at home.
I wish there was a magic bullet for that one. I hear that a lot as you go around talking to high school and middle school coaches, but I had a coach ask me this the other day at the Washington Interscholastic Coaching School, and I thought about it some. And what I've seen is when programs and culture, what it's really about is grabbing people and getting them on board. And one thing that's worked really well for some programs that I've seen is that they first off involve more people in their process, right? When you're setting your values and your culture, first off, your athletes can be involved, your alumni can be involved. But I would say once you have a solid core of values in place, don't be afraid to invite your parents in and talk to them about your culture and about your values. And understand, though, that you're selling something. You have to sell that to them. Now, I know they're crazy, and some of them are still going to give you some of that, but if you're clear with who you want to be and your expectations, and you can get in front of them and sell that, you got a better shot. And so if it's just me, I want to be in front of the parents, talking to them about who we want to be, make it clear, and make sure that they understand what that is. Because I have seen this, where there's a lack of communication, and I think parents are unreasonable, but when there's a lack of communication, there's just really nothing. It's hard for you to do anything about that, but I think sell it. I tell people, give people a reason to care. When you have a set of values and a brand in place that's really solid and you're excited about it, go get in front of them and tell them, this is what we want to do, this is where we want to go. Do you have any kind of tips on values you think we should embrace? Sometimes it will surprise you. They'll come out and be like, oh, work ethic and all these things that you're like, oh, cool, I'm glad you said it. You were thinking it, but you didn't put it out there. But a lot of times they come up with the ideas. You get buy-in that way. So those are just some initial ideas that I would have.
BK, you want to add to that? Sally after BK?
Oh, well, I thought you guys had parents figured out in New Mexico, so I guess I didn't have any remarks prepared for this. I hope I was going to learn something from you guys. What he said, and look, part of this is let's not limit the question to parents. You got to overcome the culture on Instagram and in music and on TV and on a high school campus and on a college campus and on the news and in whatever place you think the culture isn't exact. What sport do you coach? Volleyball, right? Whatever other things don't reflect the same standards you want. So don't limit it just to the home. So here's step number one. Step number one, even before grabbing the parents, is create a culture worth buying into then. And you'll know it works when people want to be part of that culture. The problem is when we ask for buy-in before we've earned the right. That's it. And there's nothing fair about saying the standard you're going to ask for is different than maybe the standard they get in the home. If you're going to get hung up on the fairness of that, get out of coaching. Because it isn't fair. You just have to deal with it. But go back. I mean, we could get a call tomorrow that somebody we love has cancer. That's not fair, but it doesn't let us off the hook from having to deal with it, and I bet a bunch of people in this crowd have. It's not a question of fairness. It's a question of what we actually have to do. And so whether it's a football program, volleyball program, a school, we're trying to build a culture for what we're doing, and in some way we have to protect our culture while finding the people who are the stakeholders and let them participate in it. But don't ever forget this. Anybody who's not on your team is not part of your culture. They can have a role, but there's a difference between being a player and a coach on your team and being a parent. There's a role for you here, but there's also a line. And inside that line, it's you and your team. And that's it. Not me, not a parent, not their friends, not their buddies. It's you guys. Some of the people who have close relationships can have a role in that, and your job is give them a compelling, important, and feels like valuable role. Does that make sense?
I would just say to you, I get the phone calls in my office when a coach will not communicate with a parent. So if all of a sudden they'll say, oh, they closed practice, or they won't talk to me. That is when the parents start thinking something else is going on, and then they're drumming in their head, there's more to this. And then they start making up things that aren't even true. So I'll ask again, go back to communicate with those parents. Don't be closed off with them. And I know sometimes it's easier to run away or not talk to them. The best thing to do is to talk to them so that they get to know you as a human being.
Who else has a question out there?
Let me add one thing on that, because I didn't know you were going to say that, and I believe in that so deeply. Let me lay out something that I've seen, and let me paint a little risk scenario. If you close yourself off to parents, please understand you put yourself at risk to be harmed with the ability to do nothing about it. Back to the whole inventing thing, here's the point. When you wall yourself off, one, you invite that criticism onto you. Number two, you're completely out of position with parents that when that criticism and even the made-up stuff does show up, you don't have any credibility to actually put your side on the table. So we do ourselves a disservice when we wall ourselves off because we break that relationship off. They then start lobbing the criticisms over, and we're completely out of position to do anything. So while it's not necessarily their culture, creating that role is important and communicating is important because that's what keeps the mutual respect there, and it's what allows you the opportunity to repair that mutual respect, not if, when it inevitably gets damaged, because this is an emotional thing that we're all doing.
We have time for one more question, then we have to wrap this up. One more question right over here, sir, if you don't mind just coming out just a little bit. Let them know what school you're from as well.
I'm from Lordsburg, and you mentioned, Brian, you mentioned that leadership, if you're not going to, you can talk about it, but if you're not going to teach it, you know, what's the point? You mentioned there's some simple ways to teach leadership. Just curious about that.
You mean like how to be systematic about leadership?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, well, one, I am going to talk a little bit about that in my keynote tomorrow, so if there's, you know, interest beyond the 1 minute here. But look, leadership operates like a system like anything else. You know, for example, humans operate by emotional rules, not so much rational rules. Back to, in the absence of information, what's the smartest thing to do? Make a bunch of stuff up in our head about what could be going on, or just wait until we get the info? It doesn't make rational sense to invent something and then get angry at my own invention. But that's what we all do when we drive. I don't know who you are, but you did something I disagree with. It must mean you're a bad person and out to get me. Like so, and then I get mad at my own creation. But with leadership, I mean, leadership very simply comes down to two things. Can you build deep trust with people so you can push them incredibly hard? And there's a system around that. You know, everything operates like a system, whether or not it's managed like one. And so there's a system for building trust. There's a system for pushing people to results. You know, there's other systems out there, you know, in leadership. I'm less concerned about whether you pick Focus 3's system as much as I am for anybody, is pick a system. Pick a system for culture, a system for behavior, a system for offense, defense, special teams, you know, half court, whatever your sport is. Pick a system, devote yourself to it, do simple things with elite discipline, have fun, bring that energy to it, put 2 years in and see where you stand. Again, if you fail, you can live with that. But if you pour energy into no system, that's where failure, I'll use your bad word, sucks.
Coit, go ahead. We got 30 seconds with Coit.
And the one thing I would say, those things I think are amazing. And then I would add to that, if you're the leader, the best way to teach leadership is to model it at a really high level. You know, I don't know if you've ever been around leaders before that say one thing and then they do the opposite. People get real pissed about that, and they don't like you so much. And the one thing I would say is once you know your values or whatever your system is, as the leader, step up and pursue it like crazy every single day. So when you walk into your athletes and say, hey, discipline right here, they've seen you do discipline every single day. They're not questioning you. They believe you because you've showed them every single day. My coach mopped the mats every single day. If he'd asked me to do it, I would have done it every day. because he showed me he was willing to do the little things. I learned amazing lessons from him because of that.
Sally, anything you want to add? You got 20 seconds. They're good. All right, well, let's do this. At 9 o'clock tomorrow, you get Coyote. At 10 o'clock, you get Sally. At 11 o'clock tomorrow, you get BK. Make sure these sessions are full. This is an esteemed panel. A lot of knowledge on this panel for culture, leadership, process. A big round of applause for these three, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's the 74th annual. It's just kicked off. Enjoy the entire week. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Good night.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student-athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student-athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across